Thanks for the prayers, everybody. Just ask that you would continue to pray for us. Really super excited about this. Africa's held a place in my heart for a long time. I've intentionally not gone, and it's been 12 years. And I felt like the Lord has had me stationed here strategically and kind of had my wings clipped for a little bit. But I felt like, and we've been praying for the right time to take my son as well, and the Lord's been speaking to him. I think he's going to be preaching his first sermon this week. So, and then it's a miracle that my dad's able to go. Be praying for his health. 10 years ago when he got stricken with that virus that hit his heart, the doctor told him to his face that you'll never do that again. And God is faithful. So be praying for him. He's so faithful. But just be praying for us. Excited about it. Have plenty of stories to come back with. Open your Bibles. We're going to turn multiple places, but just start at Matthew 24. There seems to be an infatuation with the end of the world. Of course, as believers, as Christians, we know how this whole thing's going to wrap up. You know, movies might try to depict it a certain way. REM might actually sing that's the end of the world as we know it. You know. But whatever venue, people are consumed with that. I mean, how many movies in the last 5 years has it been a dystopian world after the end of the world? You know, like, get a new storyline. You know, it's the same thing over and over and over. That's where people's minds are. You know, when I was a kid, I was told a lot, and I'm sure you were as well in the churches you grew up in, we're in the last days. You know, and it was accompanied by hellfire preaching, and it didn't do us any harm. It did us a lot of good. It actually scared me straight. I had a fear of God and the acknowledgement that Jesus could come back at any time. Even though it's not mentioned as much, that's still true. Andre Crouch sang a song back in the day, "Any Day Now We'll Be Going Home." One of my favorite Andre Crouch songs. I think we as Christians, maybe we've become hardened to it, maybe we've ignored it, but the truth is, it's almost like we've lost the realization that we truly are living in the last days. And we've lost our focus. And even lost our passion for Christ. And it's almost like we've become numb talking about it. Or we easily dismiss it, thinking, well, if that's true, we're generations away from that. That won't happen in my lifetime. I'm not going to really worry about it right now. Jenny and I guess we kind of like the beach, but we're mountain people. We like the mountains. You know, you really have mountain people and have beach people. We're mountain people. And as you're driving through, my dad was born in the mountains of eastern Kentucky. Jenny was born in the mountains of the Rockies. She's from Denver. And we just love the mountains. And anytime you're driving in the mountains, there is a sign that you see on the side of the road pretty often. And it says, "Beware of fallen rocks." How many people have seen those signs? Has there ever been a time that you've seen one of those signs that when you drove on that part, you weren't looking up and making sure that something was not coming down on top of you? I'm telling you, every time I see that sign, I'll slow down and I'm just kind of creeping along, making sure. There's no way I'm going to ignore that because it told me it's possible. It's very possible. I guess I'm going to say today, beware. Beware of the last days. Take note of what I'm going to tell you today. Beware and look. Don't ignore these signs. Because a lot of these things are already in operation. And I think by what I'm going to say today, I can prove to you that we are deep into the last days. This morning, I'd like to talk about end-time spirits. Spirits that we're going to see in operation upon the earth in the last days. The Bible's pretty specific about this. And as I name these spirits and talk about them, how many people realize that even though we live here in our flesh and on earth, there's a whole other world going on out there. It's called spiritual warfare. Amen. And the enemy is moving on this earth just like the forces of God are moving on this earth. And I want to talk about some spirits that Jesus himself told us would be in operation in the last day. Let's look at Matthew chapter 24. The disciples were infatuated with this. In verse 3, they said, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and the close of the age? See, here we are over 2,000 years later. We're asking the same questions. Many people are answering them foolishly, but Jesus gives a wise answer. He says, see that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying that I'm the Christ. And they will lead many astray. In verse 11, he says, and many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. In verse 24, he says, for false Christ and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders as to lead people astray, even if possible, the elect. That means those that are sealed, those that are followers of Jesus. The first spirit that Jesus tells us is going to be in operation in the last days, I'm calling a counterfeit spirit. You know, there are some things that have the appearance, the illusion of truth. And even to the point that there's manifestations that follow them. I mean, I was going to say people aren't dummies, but that's not always true. People are easily fooled. I mean, how many times have we seen some cult leader come up and say that he's God? And I've always wondered, what makes people so dumb that they follow these people? Amen. I mean, they've done some of the craziest stuff in the world. They're drinking Kool-Aid. They're putting purple cloths over themselves in tennis shoes, looking up for the Hale-Bopp comet. What is wrong with these people? Am I talking to the right crowd? I'm sorry if I offended you. Maybe you're... But you haven't met so-and-so, Red. The Bible tells us that in the last days, there's going to be a counterfeit spirit. People claiming they're the Christ. People performing signs and wonders. People that are false prophets that have the illusion that they know what they're talking about. Jesus himself told us plainly, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father but by me. That ought to seal it on the inside of us that there's one God, one Jesus, and he's never going to replicate himself in something else. He is the Son of God. He's not going to change. He is God in human flesh. He's the great intercessor beside the right hand of God, making intercession for you and for me. And he is the only way to the Father. And if some charlatan comes along and tells you differently, he's a false Christ, he's a false prophet. Don't listen to him. Throw what he says in the trash can. We give ear to so much stupidity. Just because somebody prophesies to you, don't accept that blindly. That's not really in my notes, but that's advice and it's free to you today. If you accept every prophecy blindly, you're going to end up in a lot of ditches. Even when Paul's telling the church, hey, let one or two prophesy and let everybody else judge to see if what they're saying is from God. You know, that's what I do when somebody prophesies in this pulpit. It could be in this church. Not every prophecy that's coming from this church is from God. A lot of it's flesh. One amen, really. It's the truth. Judge. See if it's from God. Because there's a lot of people in the last days that's going to seek to lead us astray. Let's continue. On down to verse 10. He tells this, and many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Not only is there going to be a counterfeit spirit in the last day, which I think we've already seen extensively and is still there, there's going to be a spirit of division. There's going to be a spirit of division. Jesus says people, now these are believers. They're going to follow, if you're going to fall away, that meant that you were there. And you're going to fall away and you're going to hate one another. Hate's a strong word. We're not supposed to hate anything. Jesus says there's going to be believers that fall away and just get so enraged with hate for one another. Are you kidding me? I thought we were supposed to be unified, because unity is where the Lord commands his blessing. All be in one accord. And if you can't fit in an accord, then get a bigger car. Come on, you're laughing like you haven't heard that before. Preacher jokes, there's nothing new under the sun. They just like refurbish these things from time to time. Look around, guys. My goodness. How little it takes to divide believers today. Over the pettiest, most idiotic things, we're divided. Now, we wouldn't say we hate one another. Matter of fact, we spiritualize it. I don't like them. I love them with the love of the Lord because I'm supposed to, but I don't want to be around them. That's what God was talking about when he said the love of the Lord. Just absolutely hate him, but love him with the love of the Lord. That's such a cop-out. Love is all-encompassing. Why are we so divided over dumb stuff? Jesus said it's a last-day spirit. In those days, you're going to see believers. I wonder what the disciples thought when they heard that. You know, because they were in one accord. They had a unity and passion, a unity of direction and focus. Hearing that in the first century, I wonder what they thought. Because they were asking the question, when's the end going to come? When are you coming back? He said, well, here's what it's going to look like. I know we have this really awesome group here. You know, the Dirty Dozen here. We're doing our thing. It's not always going to be like this. There's going to be a time that people that bear my name hate one another. What are you talking about? Hate? We're the church. What are you talking about? Take inventory of your heart right now. Is there hate towards anybody in here? Is there unforgiveness towards anybody in here? Is there a distaste and a disgust towards anybody in here? Get it right. Because if we don't, we're allowing that end-time divisive spirit to come in and divide us, and it gets us off task. There is nothing worth separating over and breaking fellowship over, guys, unless it's heresy or something like that. Everything else, I'll let you be right. We can agree to disagree. I'm not breaking fellowship with you. Because we're supposed to be unified. Jesus says it's an end-time spirit. A spirit of division. They're going to hate one another. And people are going to fall away because their hatred of the church. My goodness. Matthew chapter 24. Everybody say counterfeit spirit. Spirit of division. Number 3 is this. Look in verse 12. He says, and because lawlessness will abound, lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. The spirit of lawlessness. Hold your place there and turn over to 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 through 5. What is lawlessness? What does that look like? I think Paul gives a pretty good picture of what lawlessness looks like to his spiritual son. Because he's talking about the end times too. 2 Timothy chapter 3. This. Excuse me. But understand this, that in the last days, verse 1 of chapter 3, 2 Timothy, in the last days, there will come times of difficulty. People will be lovers of self. lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Guys, lawlessness is here. That spirit is pervasive, not only in the world, that spirit is pervasive in the church. There's a spirit of lawlessness, guys, that is running rampant through the people of God. And we have forgotten the fact that God has called us to be separate and to be a chosen people and a royal priesthood, a holy nation unto the Lord. Holiness should be our goal in life, to be like the one we're following, to look like Jesus, to smell like Jesus, because we've been in his presence. I love that in the book of Acts, man. Or I think it's in the book of Acts. They said, you've been around him, you know. You've been with him. I'm like, I want people to say, like, you've been around him. You've been close to Jesus. If you get close to my dad, you're going to smell like Aspen cologne. It's a tangy waft. You can tell if he's been in the room. You can tell if you've been around him. I love that. To me, that's the fragrance of Jesus. People ought to be able to tell that we've been around him.
Amen.
You know, you come in our house, I don't know what it is about bacon. That saturates everything in your house. Jenny can cook bacon, which she does often. Hallelujah. It's just amazing. You can come in that night and the house is like baconated.